This is Dr. David Jubb. Got a really great show for you today. We've been just talking a little bit about uplifting critical conversation, and we've been looking into how the emphasis should really be on various standards that are based more in assessing and defining moments of times in the past, for instance, and where we have going on today, which really does shape your life. And this is really you and I being able to relate ever more to the world. And so the more that it's possible for us to know about where you come from and this sort of thing, I think that's a great idea, because you've got a better insight into what happened in the past, and it can cause you and I to make more logical decisions and things where we are, that is to be for our own survival. So what might a question be at this point, sort of, because we've been talking a bit about the size of the Earth and other things, and how things were in the past.
Looking at the
what
news,
might a question be that's come in?
I see.
Okay, so from our last question, wow, you mentioned some extraordinary facts about a lot of things, and I think our audience would love to hear more about these giants and past species and our relation here on Turtle Island.
Well, it's amazing. That's really interesting. Okay. Well, just a small treatment, because it should be that you can have some insight that other species lived here. And we've had various forms of hominoid, of course. Facts really arrive and is a path more to an action that you and I take, which comes to be more eventuated. And it starts really by fact that you have. People in the past really carried medicine bundles, those that were more record keepers, and they could go into their bag and they could draw something out, and then it would talk about various things. Cloud, my teacher, had various things like ceramic, which was of a pottery design, which was like red and black stamped. And this comes from the Lower Creek Confederation, which was run by giants, you see, not so long ago, really. And inside the bag, sometimes you would pull out a stone, for instance, which was really not a stone, it was a smelted rock. And I would come to learn what was inside that smelted rock and how did it work. But it gave people the capacity to boil water instantly and also have warmth and also have light. And it was like a portable instrument that you could turn on easily by wetting it, and it would last for the time that it was wet, and then it would go off, you see, unless it was wet again. And so you've got people back then that really are direct descendants from people who came with hot air balloons from Argentina, and they did come in airship. Hot air balloons were invented and was quite something in the ancient world that people knew about. We found various balloons and took them to Italy and other places in the very beginning, and then it was for someone to have stolen an idea that actually the people had for a long while, and it was that somebody had invented this, but that wasn't something just had all of a sudden been invented at all. The ships that they came in were called foam houses, because they always had a bit of foam in front, and they were a house that was floating in the water. And so they called them foam houses, and that meant a ship, that was going in the water. So some of these people, like the Denisovians, certainly DNA has all been done on those, and you can see that it's about 4% of all the people that are here on Turtle Island actually have some DNA a little bit related to a time past where there were different hominoids and some interactedness within a species. But the Denisovians were sometimes 36 feet, which we've got bones of, certainly. And a giant might have been in those days about 8 or 9 feet at least, and that would be considered a giant. Otherwise, you had tall Cro-Magnons, and they were all around 6 feet. And they were also considered to be giants, of course. You've got the Paracas people, who they all really are around about 7 feet, 6, 7 feet, and they don't get taller too much than that much. Some are a bit taller. Then you've got lots of Florensis, you've got other gracile people, which make up modern hominoids. So the modern hominoid really isn't made from any of the species of the Caracas, because that was an absolute different race. They could express emotion by raising their hair at the back of their skull. But the Denisovians and the Paracas people all lived together and often cohabitated, in fact. And the Lower Creek Confederation here in America, which Cloud comes from, and this information which I'm sharing with you comes from her record keeping of the time that she has medicine bundles that relate to, and even, as I said, the stone that came from these giants and the instrument that it was in, shards of it, and various other things like pottery and things, which absolutely, no question about it, it is this race that had that sort of pottery. So the Paracas skull people have two foramen on the back of their skull, and they have very, very black hair. They have fair skin, but their hair mostly is very, very black. But it doesn't mean that some of it is sometimes red, but it's sort of like a red-black. But it's the blackest hair you could see just about. And when it is got the sun on it over time, it goes to be orange. And over time, always, it is that when we would ever find these skulls, you would always see that time had caused the pigment which was there to move to be orange. So it's always that you just will find all of these people, even the Paracas people, including the Denisovians, and they always have this red hair. But Cloud said that there were incredibly intelligent giants, and there were giants that had intelligence, but they had gone awry in their thinking, and that civilization could become corrupted because there were conditions that can exist which is not natural. But what's natural, you could be appraised of, you could learn more about how to be more associated, congruent and integrated in your own life. And I think that it's so important that the information that we can talk about as we come up in future shows might relate a little bit more to your being more integrated, congruent and associated, and not to underestimate the condition that could be going on where genocide could be underway where it is. People did eat others, some. In the past they were cannibals for sure. That doesn't mean everybody was cannibals at all. Most people saw that was aberrant, and no one lived very long on anything such whatsoever. So only that you could say a moment of time sometimes happens where people are and they've lost their way, and stateless and rudderlessness goes on for hot ranges of reasoning. But you and I, we've to have an intelligence where we are and be able to think for ourselves and divine a really beautiful future. So anyway, this is Dr. David Jubb. Hope you've been enjoying this show. Catch up to her in a future show. Thanks.